Joe Biden says Israel should pause the fighting in Gaza because Hamas needs a water break. Now, although those weren't his exact words he used, that was the effect of his message. A young Israeli was murdered today in a shooting attack in Samaria, just down the road from this studio. The IDF continues to make headway in the Gaza Strip, eliminating terrorists and coming closer to their strongholds in Gaza City. We've got those stories as well as a fascinating look at how the Israeli Air Force is using these epic bombs to destroy Hamas terror tunnels. I'm Josiah, and this is the Israel Guys. That was a woman from the Gaza Strip who was grieving the loss of a loved one, potentially in an Israeli airstrike or something like that, when she dared to speak out against Hamas. What she said in English was, "All of this is because of the dogs of Hamas." And as you saw in the video, she was promptly shut up by a Palestinian man who placed his hand over her mouth, preventing her from speaking. Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today to what is actually happening in Israel. We're trying to get the facts to you from on the ground here in the land of Israel. Make sure to, first off, subscribe to this channel, guys. We're so close to hitting 100,000 subscribers. We really appreciate all those who have subscribed and have been tuning into our content as we try to get the truth through all the fog of fake news and media lies. We're trying to get the truth out to the most amount of people as possible. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. Hit that thumbs up. It seems very trivial, but it actually helps us in the YouTube algorithm. Also, you can join our Telegram. We have a breaking news Telegram channel, sending out updates, videos, and news stories on that as well. The link for that is down in the description below. Also, guys, make sure to check out Operation Itai. You guys can actually join with Operation Itai, where we are bringing a massive airlift of emergency supplies here to the land of Israel to help protect the small farms and communities here in Judea and Samaria. Make sure to go check that out. The link is down in the description below. All right, guys, just this morning, the day of this recording, Thursday, there was a terror attack here in Samaria, and this was just down the road from the studio here. There was a shooting attack near the town of Einav, between the town of Einav and Shavei Shomron here in Samaria. This is from Channel 7 News. The initial report said that one person was in serious condition and that a vehicle had overturned as a result of a shooting. Shortly after, it was reported that the victim actually died of his wounds. Israeli man was shot at, his vehicle, causing him to crash, his vehicle overturned. He was killed. I'm not exactly sure if he was, he was killed from the car crash or from the shooting attack. The information has not come out yet. This was just literally like an hour ago. The IDF confirms that the shooting attack had taken place and that the forces were pursuing the terrorist. And guys, this is crazy because this comes very close after another shooting attack several weeks back on a car in the exact same area, exact same road, right near this town. There was a shooting attack on a car. Thankfully, nobody was injured in that attack. And the Jewish residents forced the temporary closing of the exit of Nablus, Shechem, biblically the city of Shechem, in that area. That's where the terrorists came from. So they forced the closure of that exit because of this terror attack, the shooting attack several weeks ago. And unfortunately, they reopened the road recently. And what do we have? A fatal, this time, shooting attack. And the vehicle was overturned and the Israeli, sadly, was killed. Guys, please continue to pray for the family of this man who was killed. We'll be right back to the show in just 1 second, but first, Israel is experiencing an unprecedented nightmare. Thousands of Israelis, including men, women, and children, are facing unimaginable terror. The trauma the children are experiencing during this time is especially severe. Many have experienced violence firsthand, lost loved ones, and are living through a constant state of fear and uncertainty for their family's safety. These experiences have left a deep, emotional scars that will continue to haunt them for the rest of their lives unless we help them. Shiloh Israel Children's Fund provides victimized, terror-stricken children with the life-saving therapies they urgently need to heal from their trauma. The Shiloh Israel Children's Fund partners with mental health professionals to provide immediate interventions and future therapies that these children so desperately need. The success that the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund has had with these children over the past 20 years is inspiring. They've helped thousands of Israeli kids to contend with the trauma, find the healing, and eventually move forward to live happy, healthy, and productive lives. Because of the current war, the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund does not have the resources they need to help all the children that need treatment. Your generous donation can make a profound difference in the lives of these precious children. It can provide them with the opportunity that they need to receive the therapy, to rebuild their emotional well-being, and find hope for a brighter future. To donate, go to shilohisrael.org or click the link down in the description below and start helping these children receive the healing they need. Here's a little update from the war. We got some updated numbers. This is actually from the Prime Minister's office press briefing just last night, giving the updated stats on everything that has been happening in the last several weeks since the Hamas 7th massacre. So far, there have been 8,550 rockets shot from Hamas into Israel. And what people don't realize is that rockets are still being shot every single day. I have the alert app on my phone. Every time there's a rocket or there's a siren that goes off in one of the Israeli cities, a notification pops up on my phone. And guys, multiple times a day, there's 10, 12, 13, sometimes even hundreds of notifications that come in every single day. Hamas is still firing rockets at Israeli population centers, even though they are being hit hard by the Israeli Air Force and now the ground forces that are inside the Gaza Strip. There are 1,400 Israelis have been killed. This is from the October 7th massacre. In the days that followed, continuing to find and locate, identify bodies of those who were killed from that horrific massacre. 5,450 Israelis were injured from that attack. So far, 11,000 terror sites in Gaza have been struck by the Israeli Air Force. And this is interesting, guys. 1,000 arrests have been made in Judea and Samaria of terrorists. Inside of Judea and Samaria, not Gaza. We're not talking about Gaza. 1,000 arrests have been made inside Judea and Samaria. 740 of those arrests have been Hamas operatives. The other, I guess, were connected to the PLO, connected to Fatah, or maybe Islamic Jihad, or the Lion's Den organization, multiple terror groups that are located here in Judea and Samaria, but 740 are Hamas operatives. So we do know, and this confirms the sentiment here in Judea and Samaria that is very favorable towards Hamas. The going polls show that if elections were held today in Judea and Samaria for the Palestinian government, then Hamas would win that election, and the Palestinian Authority and their leader Mahmoud Abbas would be forced out, which is obviously why Mahmoud Abbas has not held elections in, I don't know, however many years. I don't have the stat. It's been over 10 years he's not held an election because he knows he's going to lose that election there. So yeah, those are the stats from the Prime Minister's office press briefing just last night. Yesterday, with the ground invasion, the ground operations, you could call it, inside the Gaza Strip, the IDF hasn't announced their ground invasion, but basically the IDF has launched their ground invasion into Gaza with a lot of forces operating now inside, taking out terror targets. Just yesterday, the IDF took out a Hamas tank commander inside of Gaza. And unfortunately, since the IDF entered Gaza with ground forces, 17 IDF soldiers have been killed. Just one of the most recent of those was Yuval Zilber, 25 years old, from Ramat Gan. He was a company commander in the Jerusalem Brigade, was killed on Wednesday, just yesterday, in clashes with Hamas gunmen inside the Gaza Strip. So please pray for his family. And we know that this is the cost of war. We know that it's going to cost Israeli soldiers' lives to go in and root out this evil, but it has to be done. And the nation of Israel is willing to go in and root out this evil, because more civilians, more people are going to die if this does not happen. Also yesterday, some terrorists ambushed the Golani brigade as they were operating inside the Gaza Strip. Thankfully, it was an unsuccessful ambush, according to the IDF reports, and around 20 terrorists were killed in this ambush. So obviously, it worked out the other way. And this is from the Times of Israel. They said, according to an unsourced report on Army radio, the Hamas gunmen tried to ambush the Israeli force at midnight, emerging from tunnels and attacking them with anti-tank missiles, mortars, and drones. The report says that Hamas gunmen tried to enter the armored personnel carriers, the APCs, and take control of them. The Israeli force fought them off in a bitter, close combat fighting, also called in air and artillery strikes to assist them in the battle that raged for some 3 hours. So this is 3 hours. These guys ambushed them. They were fighting. The report says that the 20 terrorists were killed and about 10 managed to escape. And seems rather miraculous to me, but in that sort of ambush, there were no Israeli fatalities in that specific ambush fight with the IDF. So thank God no Israelis' lives were lost in that attack, and that these terrorists were overcome and taken out. Another report coming out of Gaza is that, or not Gaza, but here in Israel, southern Israel, that U.S. Special Forces are in Israel, helping to locate some of these hostages. An assistant secretary of defense told a special operations conference in Washington last night that the main task of these special forces is U.S. Special Forces here in Israel, was to help Israel identify hostages, including the American hostages who are being held in the Gaza Strip. Also, the Prime Minister's office, in the press briefing, they announced that hostages from 28 countries are being held in the Gaza Strip. So that's crazy. And not all of those hostages, I think the number is like up to 240, something like that, 249 hostages now inside the Gaza Strip. And not all of those are solely Israeli citizens. I believe there's a lot of Thailand workers that are being held there. Some of the Israeli citizens have dual citizenship. So that's, I think, the 28 countries being held in Gaza. That is the hostages there as well. But American Special Forces are now in Israel helping Israel locate and identify some of these hostages in the Gaza Strip. I guess that's with intelligence and all that sort of stuff. And the U.S. commandos, Special Forces, have not been given any combat roles, but we're discussing with Israeli forces the situation. So they're helping to advise Israel on the ongoing and developing war in the Gaza Strip. So we thank the U.S. forces for their help with helping the IDF defeat Hamas. All right, guys, I want to show you this video here, and I thought this is really fascinating, but it gives you a little bit of a glimpse at how the Israeli Air Force is destroying some of these terror tunnels in Gaza. This is from Sky News, who had a military analyst break down one of the Israeli strikes on the Jabalia refugee camp. I say refugee camp because that's what it's called, but it's literally, I mean, there's people living there, and they're not refugees. But yeah, that's the media bias there, saying that there's some sort of refugee camp there. Yeah, these guys are living in slums basically, but it's from obviously the Hamas government. But I thought this analysis of how Israel is taking out some of these terror tunnels was really, really fascinating. Let's watch that.
Let's take a look at the situation on the ground now. As you can see, we've got our military analyst, Professor Michael Clark, with us. Professor Clark, great to have you with us. So, look, 24 hours on from that strike on the refugee camp, Jabalia. What do we know about situation? What's that telling us about the way the war's been prosecuted?
Yeah, it tells us quite a lot, actually. The Jabalia camp is just an extension. The refugee camp's an extension of Jabalia, the town. It's where the town just sort of becomes even less planned and more chaotic. And a lot of people were there. And the damage that was done is pretty obvious. I mean, we look at the devastation. There were 4 craters. I mean, this is a vision just of one crater, but there were 4 craters. You can see it on other images, very close together. There were 4 missiles. They were very accurate, and they went straight through. There's not a lot of explosive devastation in the buildings above, because essentially these buildings are suffering from an earthquake that takes place below. And the weapon that has done it is the GBU-28. Or sometimes the GBU-72. These are American-supplied, American-based, quite big, 20-odd feet long. This is an American aircraft, F-15 Eagle, dropping it. But there it is. And the point about these is that they are bunker busters. And the Israelis took them in 2005. They intended them to attack Iran when they were thinking of taking out Iran's nuclear bunkers. Yep. And big, they are very accurate. They've got laser designators on their nose. And the Israelis find that this is the best weapon they've got for taking out tunnels and bunkers underground. They've used them before in Gaza. The important point is, what we saw in Jabalia, there'll be a lot more of this. If they're determined to take out the tunnels and to go for the bunkers, this is the only weapon they can use. It's accurate, it works, it burrows down about 100 feet under the ground, and then it explodes, kills everything and everyone down there, but creates an earthquake 100 feet above on the surface.
So through the buildings, through the ground, into the...
Exactly. It doesn't explode on the ground, it explodes under the surface, and it does damage on the ground. So what we've seen in Jabalia looks pretty bad. We will see a lot more of it if the Israelis are sticking to this policy, which I'm guessing that they are.
Thought that was interesting, fascinating about how Israel is using these incredible weapons technologies to take out these tunnels some of these tunnels are way underground, and these bombs are able to go way down, blow that up, everybody and everything inside of those tunnels. So hopefully those will be used much more as Israel gets deeper and deeper into Gaza. And I'm sure the situation will become much more complicated. Can't imagine the adversities that Israel is going to have to face going in and finding. There's going to be booby-trapped houses. There's going to be landmines, explosives, IEDs, all this kind of stuff. Terror tunnels where you don't even know where the exits are. They're popping up everywhere. You have tanks going in, and all this crazy stuff that Israel has to face. Especially when they're fighting an enemy that is mostly underground in these tunnels that cover the entire Gaza Strip area there. President Joe Biden, our beloved President Trump likes to call him Sleepy Joe, he yesterday called for a pause in the fighting between Israel and Hamas. On Wednesday, Joe Biden called for a pause to allow the hostages to be released. Now, this was at an event, I think in a fundraising event in Minnesota. There was a heckler, a protester there that shouted out, "I need you to call for a ceasefire right now," to President Biden. And Joe Biden responded, he said, quote, "I think we need a pause. A pause means time to get the prisoners out." And the White House actually later clarified by what he said prisoners, he meant the Israeli hostages that we're talking about. The question is, Joe Biden said there needs to be a pause in the fighting. Now, what fighting are we talking about here? It makes it sound as if there's this two nations at war, and we're gonna call for a ceasefire, which would be the common term, the official term for it. We're gonna call for a ceasefire, and so maybe they'll release the hostages. For one, you're dealing with a terror organization. You're dealing with one of the worst terror organizations on the face of the planet right now, and obviously we saw that on October 7th. You're going to expect them to stop fighting when you say stop fighting, like pause. So basically what Joe Biden is saying is Israel needs to stop fighting, and maybe Hamas will release the hostages. There's been no indication from Hamas that they're even interested in a ceasefire to release the hostages. They've not made any indication that they will release the hostages if there is a ceasefire. But Joe Biden's saying, "Oh, maybe we should try this. Let's try this." The Hamas came into Israel 3 weeks ago on October 7th. And they came in. They brutally killed 1,400 Israeli civilians, and they burned children, decapitated babies, did all this horrific stuff. But let's do a ceasefire with them because maybe they're going to release the hostages. Guys, that makes no sense whatsoever. Any sort of ceasefire that Israel does or Israel agrees to right now or is forced into, which is the more likely case from international pressure, especially coming from the United States, any ceasefire is going to give Hamas the opportunity to rebuild their armaments, rebuild the places that they're holed up in, their terrorist post, and lay more booby traps, create a horrible situation for the Israeli military, basically rebuilding themselves with any ceasefire. And they have made no indication that they're even willing to release hostages if Israel were to actually get a pause in the fighting. Guys, there's no good faith anything with Hamas. You can't do anything out of good faith with an enemy that is sworn your complete annihilation. And there's even, I saw a clip yesterday of the Hamas spokesperson say, we will do October 7th again and again and again and again, as many times as it takes to eliminate the Zionist, what they call them, the Zionist regime. So yes, it's very, very simple. No, President Biden, there can absolutely not be a ceasefire or a pause in the fighting until all of the hostages are either rescued or released and Hamas is completely destroyed. And and by the way, Biden still supports a two-state solution, but he also supports the Israeli right to go after Hamas, as he says it, which I believe is a complete oxymoron. So you can go after Hamas, but you also need to create a two-state solution with that enemy you're fighting, with Hamas and the Palestinian freedom ideology. Guys, remember, Israel is in a fight for her survival. We need your prayers. We need your support as much as often as you can. Pray for Israel. Get down on your knees and lift up the nation of Israel in your prayers. Pray that the God of Israel would fight for his people and redeem them and deliver them out of this trouble and this fight that they are in. Guys, make sure to check out and join Operation Itai, helping us to bring these emergency supplies here to the nation of Israel and the civilians who need them here in Judea and Samaria. Also, make sure to check out the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. You can go there and donate to help Israeli children get healing, receive treatment and healing from trauma, from terror trauma here in the land of Israel. Guys, don't forget to subscribe and get that conversation going down below. As always, tune out the fake news and tune into what is actually happening here in the land of Israel. We'll be back every day, Monday through Friday, with your direct connection to the land and people of Israel.